So what actually is a Nintendo grifter? I've been seeing a lot of videos pop up over the past couple weeks talking about Nintendo grifters and Nintendo shills, but I feel like they've kind of become buzzwords that have lost their meanings. So I just want to go over what these actually are, in my opinion at least, and how to actually respond to them. So first, let's just get the definitions out of the way. So a grifter is someone who will just be dishonest about their own opinions to try and make money somehow. Like, let's say you like a certain video game, but it's popular to hate on it, and you make a video saying how it's the worst thing ever, and you do that because you want to get more views, which means more ad revenue. That is a basic definition of a grift. And then a shill is just someone who will defend a company or a person no matter what they do, no matter if it's right or wrong. And I think most of you would probably agree with me that both of those are bad. Like, I think these are probably two vocal minorities. I think most people are rational enough to see the issues with both of these. But let's talk about what a Nintendo grifter actually is first. So the big quote-unquote Nintendo grifter is Nintendian. Like, people post his videos around, people constantly talk about him as like the Nintendo grifter. And I don't know Nintendian personally. I've never interacted with him. I've not watched many of his videos. So I can't say definitively that he is a grifter, that he does not believe anything he is saying. That's a possibility, but I don't like to just make statements and say them objectively when it's not something that I can necessarily prove. And when it comes to Nintendian, I understand why people are calling him a grifter, because he has mostly made like negative Nintendo content. Like, since the Switch 2 came out, I've looked at his channel. Most of his content is negative on Nintendo. So I do believe that a lot of it is probably because he's just saw that it was getting more views. And when you're a YouTuber, your goal is to get views. So if he's seeing that his negative Nintendo content is getting more views and more attention, it makes sense to keep doing that. So again, I can't say that definitively. That's probably the case. I think he's probably someone who is a big fan of a lot of Nintendo games, but has real issues with them. And then that was combined with his videos, his negative videos of Nintendo blowing up. So I can't tell you whether he believes it or not. But going back to this, if someone makes negative Nintendo videos, but they legitimately believe what they're talking about and they aren't just making up information as they go, that's not a grift. That's just disagreeing with them. And if your first thought whenever anyone makes a negative Nintendo video is that it's grift, you're probably a Nintendo shill. I'm not saying that there's no negative videos that are grifts, because that would be a ridiculous statement. But if you see anyone say anything negative about Nintendo, and before even seeing what they have to say, your first thought is that they're a grifter, your mind is already going there to kind of defend Nintendo. And I know someone might counter and say, well, my mind just goes there because I have seen a lot of grift videos, and you know what, that's a fair point. But still, I think if someone makes a video, or if you see a thumbnail or a title, and it's something like for example, a video I made where I said that Switch 2 game pricing, or Switch 2 edition game pricing, was one of the worst things I've seen Nintendo do. I saw people call me a grifter for that, but I legitimately believe it, and I've said that in multiple videos. I've stayed consistent on that, because I believe it to be one of the most anti-consumer, unfairly priced things Nintendo's ever made. I don't think a 9-year-old game that launched at $60 should cost $70 now, and not even include the DLC, and just get that $10 extra price because it has slight graphical improvements, when a lot of games on the Switch, even from Nintendo themselves, had free Switch 2 upgrades. A lot of people either just see the thumbnail or the title or disagree with what I'm saying, and then just use that to say I'm a grifter, or to say anyone's a grifter who's making content on that. And that just makes Nintendo fans seem like shills, because I know a lot of people will call out legitimate Nintendo hate, like legitimate Nintendo grifting, that I believe to be unfair. Like, if someone says the Switch 2 has no games, that's perfectly fine to argue with and call out, because the Switch 2 has games. Now, I don't think it has the best library ever. I've kind of been unhappy with the lack of like big games that we know about for 2026, but the system has games. Like, it's not like there's nothing there. So I can understand pushing back on that. But if someone says that the Switch 2 doesn't have enough games that they're interested in, or enough big games, that can be a legitimate gripe with the company. And if your first thought is to call that a grift, then chances are you're going to find most negative things on Nintendo to be a grift. There's people I've seen that have made their entire identity that they're just going to call out quote-unquote grifters, which translates to anyone who criticizes Nintendo. Like, I've seen people call out Arlo as being a grifter, which I think is completely absurd. Like, I think if you're calling Arlo a grifter, like, it's hard to take you seriously at all. He's someone I've watched for well over a decade, and he's one of the most fair gaming YouTubers in general, because he's willing to call it the good and the bad. He's more analytical. Like, he isn't just making things up out of the blue to defend a point. But he has been somewhat critical of Nintendo recently. He's made videos like voicing some concern with them. In my opinion, an example of a grift would be if someone said the Switch 2 is selling bad, because even if they legitimately believe that, it's just not true. Like, the Switch 2 is selling very well. Now, is that going to be sustained over its entire life cycle? I don't know. If someone makes a video talking about how they think the Switch 2 is going to fall off, and they give points to defend that, that doesn't mean it's a grift. It means that they're giving an opinion that could end up being true, could end up being false, but that doesn't meet the definition of Nintendo grifting. Like, the Switch 2 for now, it objectively has had a great start. Now, there has been a couple bumps in the road, like the Christmas season apparently wasn't that great for really video games in general. So if someone's bringing that up, that's not a grift. And if someone says something like, if Nintendo can't get their big games out, like if they don't have enough big exclusives that people aren't gonna keep buying the Switch over time, then that again is a legitimate thought on what could happen. It doesn't even mean you need to agree, but again, that's not the definition. And now let's talk about Nintendo shills for a bit. So I think they're less common because negativity just gets more views, it gets more engagement, and I will get to that in a little bit. But people who will defend anything Nintendo does, people who will say there's no issues with game key cards, people who will defend $80 games that are years old, people who will defend any sort of Nintendo pricing decision, like those are just as bad as grifters. Like I've been called a shill because I said that game key cards were not the worst thing ever made. I think they are bad. I think that just having a cartridge that has no actual data on it and forces you to download the entire game onto the console, like I think that's a bad thing. But with that being said, I think it's better than just fully digital where you can't even sell the game, where you don't get that physical case. So I try to be nuanced about these, but the problem is that you can't just sit on the fence. Like you either have to hate or love Nintendo. You either have to support something, or like you can't say like I don't like this or I like this but I have issues with it. Like you have to pick a side, and that's just not how most things work. Like keep in mind, we are talking about video games. These are not important. Whether you think Nintendo Switch 2 game keycards are bad or whether you think they're perfectly fine, it doesn't actually matter. It's not important. If you log off the internet for a day, you're not going to hear anything about this because it doesn't actually affect much in the real world. Now, it doesn't matter at all. Yes, like I shouldn't say it doesn't matter at all, because it does matter for the hobby, but it's just that it's a hobby. It's not politics. Like politics, I understand why it may make more sense to really pick a side instead of just stay in the middle. Like I understand that because that actually has real world implications. But video games, like are people getting? I just don't get why people get worked up over what random people online are saying about a hobby that's meant for fun. I'm not saying that you're wrong if you argue with someone or if you disagree with someone or push back. But if you legitimately are seeing red because a random guy on X or Twitter, whatever you call it, had a different opinion about Nintendo, like, do you not see the issue there? Now, it's different if someone's personally attacking you on something, like, then, yeah, you have more of a right to have a stronger reaction to that. But if you just cannot let someone have their own opinions on video games, whether you disagree or not, that says a lot more about you than them. Like, usually I see a ton of comments, a ton of things I disagree with, and sometimes I'll push back and say, like, I disagree and here's why. But a lot of times I'll just ignore it because it doesn't really matter. I'm probably not going to change their mind. It's not something that actually affects me, so I just don't let it get to me. And now this gets back to what I mentioned a couple minutes ago about how negativity drives views. So think about it this way. If I like Pokemon Pokopia and I make a video saying I really like Pokemon Pokopia, do you think that's going to get more views and more engagement, more comments, more likes and dislikes, more likes than a video called Pokemon Pokopia was the worst game ever? Probably not. It may get more dislikes, it may have less likes, but it's going to have way more engagement in terms of comments. It's probably going to get a lot more views because negativity drives people to comment. It makes people react stronger and has people arguing in threads, which just means more engagement, more views, more watch hours. And that's really why a lot of people, whether they are grifting or not, are going to focus on negative content. So if someone's legitimately a grifter, do you think they're going to care if you go around posting their content to subreddits or to Twitter or make videos about them? Probably not, because it's only going to get them more attention and more views. And that's exactly what they want. It's like one of those enemies where the more bullets you shoot at them, the stronger they get, because you're just giving them more views. Like you're encouraging them to make more content like that because it's just driving engagement. They're making more money from it. The best thing you could do is if you find a video you think is a legitimate grift, is just click off that video. You may want to dislike, but now people can't even see dislikes, so it's not even like that really has an effect. In fact, it gives that video more engagement. And then if you comment, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. So on one hand, you can warn people that that video is bad, but chances are most people are not going to see that comment. Your comment will get deleted by the creator, or they're just going to keep it up because it's just going to mean more engagement. The more comments on a video, the more engagement, the more that video is going to be pushed in the algorithm. And I'm not saying you can never share any of this to call someone out for grifting or making bad content. But I'm saying, just think about it a little more. Like, think about, is this worth your time? And on the other hand, I feel like a lot of people have been kind of unfair to a lot of Nintendo YouTubers, and a lot of YouTubers in general, like not even just Nintendo, by nitpicking every single thing they say to either label them as a grifter or a shill, when that is just not the case for most people. Most people who cover Nintendo games like Nintendo games, but they may have problems with the company, and they may even have more issues. Like, I have seen more negatives about Nintendo than positives, at least in the past, like, few months. and I've been willing to bring up both. Like I said Nintendo charging $60 for Yoshi and the Mysterious Book was a fair price, at least from what we've seen so far. I said that I was wrong about Pokopia. I thought it was just going to be an overpriced game, and whether it's overpriced or not, like that's subjective, but it is a game that has sold systems when I thought it was not going to be that. But I've also voiced opinions I have that are negative, like saying that Switch 2 Edition game pricing is bad, and that the partner showcase last month was a bad direct. But the thing is, most people are only willing to look at one video maker. Some may not even watch the video, but they'll look at the thumbnail. And again, like I mentioned, if you're engaging with the video that you don't want to support, like I know I talked about that, but if you're gonna see a thumbnail and title, and it's not something that's just an outright lie, like if it's something subjective, like if I say this is one of the worst things Nintendo's ever done, like that's a subjective opinion. If I make a video saying Mario Kart World is the worst selling Mario Kart game, like that's just a lie. That's objectively false. But for videos that voice an opinion, again, it's, you may not want to give them that watch time, but if you're gonna go around calling them a grifter, I feel like it's on you to really prove it, to call out things they said that are disingenuous or may not be true. But again, the thing I'm repeating throughout this video is that saying a negative or positive thing about a company does not mean you're a grifter or a shill, and a lot of people have just lost the definition. Even if a thumbnail seems to be a grift, like if you think a video is a grift because the thumbnail just looks extreme, remember, that's the way 99% of YouTubers like get clicks. Like you need to have a clickable thumbnail. It has to get people's attention, and clearly it worked in that case if it's making you think that. Because not everyone is Video Game Donkey who can literally just post like a screenshot from a game and get 1 million views. Like you have to make thumbnails that people are going to notice. As long as you're not just straight up fabricating something that didn't happen and making that like sound objective. Like that's just how a lot of YouTube thumbnails are. So if you've made it to the end of this video, I'm sure a lot of people are going to disagree with me. They're going to say that opinions they disagree with are grifting, or say that since I've defended Nintendo that's shilling. And the thing is, you can't reason with a lot of people. I think the majority of people who are going to agree with what I'm saying are probably not going to comment. And I think people who disagree with what I'm saying are more likely to comment because they felt negative emotions watching this, which leads to them wanting to engage with this more. And I think that's kind of why we see so many people being labeled as grifters, whether they actually are or not. And the reason a lot of these people still get views, because these small communities, whether it's on Twitter, Reddit, or wherever, are a very vocal minority. Like the majority of people watching this content are not in these communities. Like they are probably a couple percentage points, if even. And also on the internet, no matter what you do, someone is going to dislike you. People will disagree with whatever you say, no matter how reasonable it may seem. So when it comes to grifters or shills, don't let other people tell you if someone is a grifter or a shill. Make up your own mind about it. Like if you watch a couple of someone's videos and you were told they were a shill, but you don't feel that they're a shill, maybe they're not a shill. Maybe they're, or if someone said they were a grifter, maybe they're not a grifter. Like make up your own opinions. Grifter and shill are, again, subjective terms. Like I've given my opinion on what I believe it is, but it is subjective. If you do agree with what I'm saying here, or if you disagree but want to have a respectful conversation, then reply. If you just comment arguing with either me or someone else and trying to just use personal insults or coming from a place of emotion, you're not going to get anywhere. But maybe I made a point in this video that you disagree with, and if you want to try and change my mind on it or change a commenter's mind, just try and have a rational discussion, because that's really the only way you can change someone's mind. This should just not have so much cynicism in it, meaning that the Nintendo community online, because it's meant for fun. It's supposed to be something positive, and yes, we should still make negative videos. If Nintendo does something negative, we should still call them out if they do something bad. But video games themselves are supposed to be just a hobby. It's like something for fun. And I think a lot of people forget that and just use it as an excuse to get angry, which I don't think should be the case. But anyway, if you did like this video, subscribe if you want to see my takes on other Nintendo content, and check out some of my previous videos if you want to see my thoughts on other things like this and other Nintendo games. Be sure to check those out, and I'll see you next time.